Hello and welcome to Digital Marketing Masterclass. My name is Chris Carr. I'm the president and founder of Faratech. We're going to talk about what makes a good website. We're also going to look at the 4 essentials on how your website can generate leads, nurture leads into clients, and then convert those clients into brand ambassadors or raving fans of your brand, your vision, and your message. So let's dive in. So the first essential thing that we need to talk about are your KPIs and your goals. If you're building a website without knowing those KPIs and those goals right up front, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because it's almost like starting a race with no finishing line. All right, so you want to get crystal clear about not only what the goal is, but what are the steps to get there, and what are these key performance indicators that are going to go on through your website, through your engagement, through your marketing, and through all your conversion to know, hey, you know what? If I built this website, I know that it's a machine that's going to consistently generate leads and opportunities. So to better elaborate on goals, let me talk to you about one of the clients that we have. We work with a very enterprise healthcare company that's located in Philadelphia. They had very aggressive growth goals. And while we didn't build their website, our approach allowed them to understand what parts of their website were working and what parts of their website needed to grow. Okay? Now to do that, when we built the website, we had to build landing pages that were connected to conversion goals. And those conversion goals, what we strove to do is we tried to figure out what a dollar value would be for every first-time appointment. All right? So one of the critical things that I want to know when I build a website is, hey, if I put a certain dollar amount into building my website, what am I going to get in return? And so to do that, what I wanted to do was I worked with this client to figure out the lifetime value of their client. Not only like how much they made off a first-time appointment or possibly one treatment option, but you know what? Let's say a client would come to you and they have a knee problem or they have a torn ACL. We're going to be able to figure out, hey, you know what is this individual going to pay for individual consulting in the beginning, then possible a surgical option, and then a rehab option? What is the total value of that? When I know that value and I know how long they might be with my potential client, I can work backwards to find out what the dollar value would be for an initial first-time appointment conversion. Okay, so we basically said that dollar value is going to be around $300. Then the next thing what we did was we started to measure, if I know that the first time appointment is worth $300, what I can do is I can say, hey, you know what? All I have to do now is measure how many times people convert on this form or how many times do they fill out a first time appointment form, multiply that by $300, and then look at that every quarter and then every year to figure out, hey, you know what? Am I getting return on my investment from my website and my marketing? The next thing I want to talk about is, does your design make sense? Because here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to create a really creative, really compelling website that doesn't reach your sales goals. Because you know what? As great as that thing looks, it doesn't pay your bills. So what I want to be able to do is I want to say web design is an art and a science. So I want to put a ton of my focus on what it looks like, but I also have to look at the science element to figure out, does it actually work? Does it bring in sales? Does it bring in leads and opportunities? Branding alone is not a KPI that we put value in apart from conversion and engagement. Okay? So it's going to be really important to say, hey, does my website work? And so the number one thing that we try to do is we try to follow this rule that was made famous by this really powerful book in the early 2000s. It was by Nielsen and Krug. It said, don't make me think. And the problem that we see a lot of times with websites is that people come to the website, they're excited to be there, but you know what? They get lost on the website and they eventually just abandon without following the information that they need, that they were looking for originally, okay? So develop websites that work. One of the best examples that we had is for one of our clients. They're called Pro Writers. We tested everything, and what we found out is that right on their homepage, as big as possible, we put a video which was kind of like a demo of their software. And what we were finding, not only did the video kind of keep them on the page longer, but we tested conversion, and the individuals who watched that video that we made front and center right on the website, those were the people that converted bigger, stronger, and faster than anybody else. And so what we did was we built the website and we tried to figure out how is it working, and then what we did was we constantly tweaked it to figure out what components are going to basically get the best possible result. And what we found was the bigger we made this video box, the better results that we had, for this particular client. The last portion of designs that work is something we call Quasi. Quasi stands for questions with answers and simple information. The reality is that Google is designed to basically solve problems. People have a problem and then they type it into Google to find out the answer, or they find out someone who can help them with that problem. Okay? And so what happens here is that if you're building your website and you're not building your website in a way that answers the questions that they have, that provides simple information, and then also allows read more functionality to go to in-depth information, then you're missing a really big opportunity. What you don't want to do is just create a big wall of text and they can't find the information that they need in that huge wall of text. And then what you also don't want to do is create such minimal content that people that want depth can't find it. So we're going to constantly be looking at your website to develop that quasi, like questions with answers and simple information. The third essential that we're talking about here is content organization. When we launch a website, that's the beginning of the process, not the end of the process. A lot of companies are going to come to us and say, hey, will you build us a website? And then if we launch it, I'm not going to see you again for another 3 to 5 years, and you're going to say, oh, our website doesn't work. Because you know what? Your website is always a work in progress. And the number one way to have a really compelling website is to consistently update your content on that website for user experience and then also for SEO. Now, the number one way to do that is to get very proactive about your marketing through your website. And what I mean by that is that you don't want to do what we call RAM. And RAM essentially is random acts of marketing. So for example, you don't want to just sprint to be ready for the Christmas season and then don't do anything, or sprint to be ready for a trade show and then don't do anything. When your website is built correctly, what we want to do is we want to connect it to an editorial calendar. An editorial calendar essentially allows us to go from being proactive to reactive with your marketing. And so what you're going to be able to do with an editorial calendar is you're going to have your website over here, and I'm going to publish content to it. And through the editorial calendar, you're going to know what content's going to go out in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, or even a year. What happens is that when you consistently communicate, you establish yourself as a thought leader, and in that process, your website starts to scale, more pages get indexed, and your total visibility improves. Thought leaders communicate consistently. And so therefore, if you don't put it in writing, if you don't develop that editorial calendar and have strict rules about it, you're going to be a victim to that RAM that I was talking about, that random acts of marketing. The next thing I want to do is talk about the structured content. With structured content, the hierarchy of the pages on your website matter to Google. Gone are the days of just trying to be found on the first page of Google for one page or one keyword. Google says, hey, if you're going to be a thought leader, you're going to talk about this topic in depth. And therefore, you're either going to have a longer form content with supporting content, or what you're going to do is you're going to consistently talk about that topic. And so therefore, you're going to have multiple pages. When you have multiple pages, we tie them together in a very sophisticated way. But what you're also trying to do is develop something that we call a hub and spoke model. A hub and spoke model means that the hub is longer, more in-depth content, and that in-depth content is connected or linked to other supporting materials, such as ebooks, white papers, infographics, videos. All of that content is going to exist in a family, and when all that family is connected together, your rankings soar and your website is more effective. The final essential is analytics. The reality is that we don't know what we don't know. And so what we don't want to do is we don't want to build our website on hunches, and after your website's launched, we don't want to continue those hunches to try to figure out how to market your products and services. The critical part about your website is that it's connected to enough data collecting resources like Google Analytics or other forms like HubSpot, so that you're going to be able to make data-driven decisions. Your website will not be effective if it's not connected to analytics tools, okay? You have to be able to make data-driven decisions about your marketing. We're not guessing what to do next. Our data is going to tell us what to do next. So your website should be developed to have a very strong foundation. And then what's going to happen here is as we develop content and as we look at the page and the analytics, we're going to make constant adjustments to that content to make sure that the spear is sharper and sharper. One of the stories I like to tell is about the Apollo missions in 1969. Obviously, we know that Neil Armstrong and his crew basically blasted off from Earth, went to the moon, walked on the moon, and then came back safely to Earth. But the reality is that their computer system was probably less sophisticated than our iPhone. So how did they get from the Earth to the moon? Well, the reality is that they were off course about 95% of the time. But what they did do is that as they shot off from Earth, they constantly course corrected until they landed on the moon, and when they left the moon, they course corrected to make it safely back to Earth. And so it is with your marketing. Essentially, we are guessing. No matter how much your marketing company might say, hey, you know what, we have this all figured out, we're essentially guessing. What I mean by that is that we're going to build a website based upon best practices, based upon a SWOT analysis of your competition in your industry. And what we're going to do is we're going to shoot it off, into the internet. But what we're going to do from there is we're going to monitor how are people engaging with the website. What pages do we have to add? What content do we need to clean up? What rich media do we need to add to our website to be more and more compelling? And what's going to happen here is that we're going to be in a scenario where we have a really great website, we have really great monitoring tools, and we're going to be able to make adjustments to that website over time to make it bigger, stronger, and faster. And what we're going to be able to do is we're going to make that website better and better over time. Now, the final thing I want to talk to you about in analytics is you have to sweat the small stuff. You know, there's that book that says don't sweat the small stuff. That person is not in marketing. What you need to do is you need to measure everything. So let's just say that I make one small adjustment and I improve my website by about 3%, and that's in January. And that 3% improvement lasts in February, and then in March, and then over a year. A 3% improvement month over month times 12 months is a 36% improvement. That's a really big, big improvement that will change and transform your business. You have to measure the small stuff. And if your website can't help you do that, then you haven't built your website effectively. Okay, so in review, the 4 things that we talked about today when you want to build a good website are you've got to know your goals and your KPIs. You have to build your website with a design that makes sense. You have to have proper content organization. And finally, analytics. You've got to be able to make data-driven decisions from your website. If you can do all 4 of those things in your website, you're going to have a really, really great experience. Now, if you're looking at your website and you're saying, you know what, we built this website and we just don't think it works, well, please reach out to us. We'd love to do an audit to kind of help you figure out what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, how it can be improved. And if we can help you in that journey, we'd love to do so. So thank you for joining Digital Marketing Masterclass today. Please make sure to click that bell to get more notifications. Please subscribe and like this video. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.